This is the World Satsanga on the 30th of March 2013, held in Hawaii, with the grace of Joe and Ellen Meebu. So, greetings to you all, and this is quite a monumental moment for myself, because we're here at Joe Meebu's house and computer. Say hi, Joe.
Hello, everybody.
And
hey, Joe.
We're doing this from Joe's quite efficient console, so we've got a chance to look at everything here. And it's a great day out here. I mean, clearly I'm 10 hours behind the UK time and 11 hours behind Matches, but everybody else is within 5 hours, I think. I think Alan's within 4 hours, John's within 3 hours, and Marnie's within 5 hours. I think so.
5 hours.
Yeah, great. So we're all having a good time to talk about stuff. Right. Fantastic. Well, we've got Chris, Alan, and Meryl, Xavier later, John, Marnie, Matches, myself, Jane, and Joe.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jane.
Okay. So then.
Aloha.
Aloha, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Aloha, aloha.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we had a great workshop last week, and there's Joe passed his level 3, and Marnie, and Bina, and Tanya, and Mariam passed their level 1 and 2, so it's very, very good. The energies here are fantastically high. In fact, they actually caught me out once or twice because they were so high. It was I was getting absorbed with it all and enjoying it too much. So, so I have to apologise for them drifting up into different realms. It was absolutely superb, and it still is superb energy. It's a real hot spot for clean energy without mankind's interference. Fantastic. Okay, so on the agenda today, we've got really 2 subjects that I want to talk about. One of them is to talk about recognising the truth in everything. And by that I mean sorting out the spiritual wheat from the chaff, because there's a lot of things that we say spiritually, a lot of things that we hear spiritually that aren't specifically true in lots of cases, or are based upon certain levels of understanding that are relevant really to the individual who's broadcasting them. And really I want to use this particular item as a more of a group discussion rather than me talking about it, because we'll all have examples of information that we're getting spiritually, and I want to use those examples, if you can think of them, and identify within those examples where we might look at them and understand the truths within them and the misinformation within them as well, because that's important. The next item is based upon avoiding karma, and it's about getting entangled in conspiracy, which is another form of gossip, but not from the form of personalised gossip, talking about one person or a group or a company, but more about what's happening in a bigger area, bigger picture, that could arguably be being controlled by governmental forces, etc. Because although we do like to talk about conspiracies and what's going on and what we think is going on, and we can add lots of fuel to the fire in that respect, it's also another form of gossip and can drag us down frequently as a result of that. Then I'd like to go through some questions and answers if we haven't covered those in the sessions above, and at the end of this I want to enter into a meditation to give energy to a specific location to increase its frequency. Now, clearly where I am here, it would be interesting to do that, but not particularly pertinent. So throughout the session today, I'd like you to think about where we might give energy to. What part of the world needs energy right now to lift its frequency? So just have a think about that in the background. Okay. So, going back to the first item then, recognising the truth in everything. Have anybody got any examples of spiritual information where it's become an untruth? And I've got one particular example, by the way, and I'm going to keep that in my back pocket. No? I think my back pocket is going to be used very quickly in that case.
Yeah, well, I'd love to add in, but could you give us an example of what it is more specifically you're talking about, and then perhaps maybe we can chime in.
Yeah, I mean, one particular example, one that's caught everybody out, is the ascension process on the 21st of the 12th, 2012, where there's an awful lot of us still here, wondering why. There we go. What I'm really talking about is the 12th scenario, where there's a lot of information, a lot of, shall I say, well-recognised people jumping on the bandwagon of saying that there's going to be an ascension on a certain date, and putting lots of effort into it and getting lots of, shall I say, personal credibility thrown into it, and people following them, and all sorts of different levels of devotees rebroadcasting that information. But now we find ourselves in a position where actually that information is now classified as being not specifically correct. There's a lot of regrouping going on with lots of individuals who have been working with these pieces of information, and therefore those individuals could have not only damaged their own spiritual credibility, but damaged the credibility of spiritualism and the greater reality in total, because there's a lot of agnostics and non-believers of the greater reality who are now using it as a stick to poke people with, to say, well, you know, lots of work went on with this and nothing's come out the other side, so clearly you're all talking rubbish. So that's one of the examples. There's many other examples where people move down certain areas and do lots of work on those areas and bandwagoning spiritual information. That is not specifically true, because it's all being adapted by the individual based upon the individual's own desires. Does that make sense to anybody? Does anybody want to comment on that, or add to it, or show another example?
Well, you know, regarding the whole ascension concept or whatever, it seems to me that while an aspect of it is true in that we are raising our vibrations, another aspect of it is kind of like keeping you trapped in the paradigm of needing to have a savior. It's like the whole world is operating under this idea that there's somebody or something out there that can save them. And I think more correctly, it's like we need to self-empower ourselves to become what we came here to become, and step out of that Messiah thought form. And the ascension, a lot of people that speak of ascension are speaking of the spaceships landing and taking us away from here and all this other stuff, which seems to me to be ridiculous.
Mm. Actually, that last bit, John, is a good example of misinformation, because the comment about we're all going to be saved, there's going to be a mass landing of our star brothers and sisters, in essence, if we fully understand the greater reality, we realise that they're actually already here. It's just that they're a higher frequency, and therefore it's difficult for us to see with our physical eyes. Although we can perceive them, should we be given the opportunity to practice and meditate on rising our own frequencies.
Well, I'd like to chime in on that too, and follow up on a little bit of this savior idea and this concept. You had stated when you first said this, recognizing the truth in everything. And there is truth in everything, in the sense that those that maybe put something out there that didn't come to fruition, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It means that they misinterpreted it, and when I guess one hides from that and lets that become something that demonizes or invalidates, I mean, admitting you're wrong and saying, I didn't get it quite right, I misinterpreted it, doesn't negate the truth that was in that event.
Very good observation. In fact, everything that's out there spiritually has the truth attached to it. It's just how the individual interprets it. And a good example of misinterpretation is the ascension, again, harking back to this ascension process, where at some point somebody says, on this date we're going to ascend, or we're going to be at let me just say a higher frequency level. Now, if we look at it from the perspective of somebody looking at a mountain top, and that individual's on the bottom on the road, and looks at the mountain and says, oh, at some point I'm going to be that high. But negates to realise that on the journey of getting to the top, they have to go up a hill or a slow incline when they're walking up a slow incline. And that road may come back, switch back and switch forwards to alleviate how steep that path is. Then we can recognise that the path towards the goal is a long path that is gradually getting us there in both distance and height. If we look at it from the perspective of somebody who says, well, if I travel along a distance on the floor, on the ground, but not climb up that ever-increasing path, that path that's going higher and higher, but goes along a ground level, as it were, at the same height in terms of sea level, when they get to the point where, if they look upwards, they can see this high point. To get to that high point, they'd have to jump upwards a long distance. And that's the ascension thought process. That there's an assumption that we're moving at the same level all of the time. And then when we get to a certain date, we have to jump right up to get to that point that's been observed from afar. But in actual fact, what we're doing is we're moving up this path slowly. And the path is sometimes longer than it would be if it was going straight. But also it gets us to a certain level in frequency higher gradually as well. So it's always climbing up in terms of its sea level condition. So yeah, I mean, it is absolutely right. It depends upon how we perceive and how we look at it. And sometimes we need to stand right back to remove our own thought processes to allow us to understand what the true meaning is beyond the information that's being presented to us. Does anybody else have any other examples of misinformation that needs to be looked at? Because the process of understanding is quite difficult, because we get our own desires thrown into it and our own requirements thrown into it, and we're bombarded by lots and lots and lots of individuals who have a group synergetic energy as well, which means that lots of people get sucked into it via triangulation.
Well, I'll just add one more thing to that. I have tons of examples in my own life of it that, I think that I'm engaging in a path because of a certain thing, and I can perceive an outcome and I can visualize it, but it doesn't end up always going in that direction because other people have free will and choice and they don't see my vision, and I'm not good at articulating it to them, or both, or whatever. And so I guess my question to you, Guy, and to the source is how do we reconcile when we have a vision, it doesn't come to fruition, and we get it wrong, but it's okay to be wrong. It's just how do you regroup and keep going forward and revising your vision so that you are constantly in the truth and seeking the path of truth and leads to wisdom.
There's a very simple rule. One is stand right back and take on board as many different viewpoints as possible and gain a bigger picture rather than a singularized picture, because there will always be individuals who've got it right, and there'll always be individuals who've got it misunderstood. But the thing is, if we can look at the bigger picture and stand back and look at all of the information that's being presented based upon that which is the required outcome, and understand all the different interpretations, then we can start to get intuition, help from the source, help from our higher self, our true energetic self, on what the actual picture is. Because when we're given information about anything, spiritual event or a material event, we only get one part of the jigsaw puzzle based upon that individual who's presenting and broadcasting that information. And that includes myself, people like myself. When I'm working with information, I'm very aware that I'm only presenting an aspect that's relevant to my level of understanding. And right now, in some instances, it's new information. And then when somebody else comes along who's also able to do the work that I'm doing, we'll start to get a bigger picture, because then there will be two parts of the jigsaw puzzle together, and we'll start to get a bigger and bigger picture being created from it. So looking at as many different sources of information that are broadcast around the world and through spirit and through meditation as well. We can do it through meditation to get the direction through meditation, and we should do. We start to get a bigger picture, and then can therefore work out what is misinformation based upon, shall I say, the desires of those who are broadcasting it, because of the way they like to work and their particular flavour of spiritualism that they're broadcasting. So when we look at different spiritual leaders, spiritual broadcasters, we need to look at what they do in comparison to what's being presented, and therefore strip off what they do and the particular flavour, spiritual flavour of what they do from the information that they're broadcasting. And then we can see the bare essential of the information. And then if we look at that and log it down, and then go back even further and look at other individuals who are saying similar things, and strip away their own spiritual clothes, as it were, and get the bare information that they're working with, and then keep doing it and work further and further out, we can start to see the bareness, the bare true message that they're presenting from all those different individuals, and we'll start to see the truth within it and the commonality within it, because there will be a common aspect. And when we've got that common aspect, we know that we're on the right track, and then we know that the information that's being presented to us is, in its bare sense, is correct, and then we can move forwards in confidence that what is there is going to be the reality rather than the misinformed reality. But in terms of our own disappointments when we're working with it ourselves, well, we have to make sure that we are working from an area of neutrality rather than an area of personal desire, and that's the way forward. Any comments on those thoughts? Additional opportunities for progressing and moving forwards?
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Chris.
I believe that the media puts out a lot of lies and misinformation, you know, and they've been doing it for years. I mean, you can't mistake the UFO sightings all over the world, and thousands and even millions of people have seen them, you know, but they never show this on the news, you know. And I believe it's run like by the controllers, you know, been on this planet for thousands of years. But if you look on YouTube, like it's obvious, you know, it's completely obvious that UFOs are everywhere, and they're telling us that we're here, like, and we're already among you and all that, you know. Mm-hmm. But the misinformation, I believe, comes from the media, you know, and it's a sort of like a brainwashing too, to keep people down, keep the frequencies down by depressing them. And plus depressing programs on them too, like Coronation Street and all that, standards. I believe that this is to keep the people in control by fear. I think, you know.
That would be a very good lead into conspiracy. Because we're going to talk about conspiracy in a moment, but if everybody's happy that what we've just talked about is, hang on to those words, Chris, because that was a good lead into conspiracy, which we want to talk about next in terms of avoiding karma. But in terms of what I've talked about in understanding and getting the spiritual wheat from the chaff, as it were, is everybody happy with that? Those comments that I've made, and are able to move outwards and start to strip out the personalised aspect of what people broadcast, and then look at the truth within it. In essence, getting rid of the packaging and going for the real food or the real fruit.
Guy?
Yes.
This is Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Will you be writing this or writing it down? It's a tremendous exercise to practice and to just make it a part of ourselves through practicing. But it would help me if I could go over it in a written form. I wonder if you plan to maybe post this on your website.
Well, as it happens, clearly we're recording this Satsanga, but we've got a second recording device here, who Jane's just pointed out to me, which has a function on it where it can transcribe the words automatically for us. So I think the answer to that is yes.
This is great.
If it works properly with my Birmingham English, that is. And my half.
This is really an in-depth look at the subject, and it's just got
tremendous message that she just gave. So
Yeah.
thank you.
I think it's worthy of an article, to be honest, Alan. I think you're right there. And it's also probably worthwhile squeezing it into one of the books at some point.
I'm glad to hear you have a transcribing machine. I've been trying to take notes during these meetings, and I shorthand it all. So, but I'm happy to share that with the group if they want. So, you know, I haven't mentioned that before, but Alan, if you want some notes that are taken by me, welcome to share.
That would be delightful, Marley. Thank you very much for offering that service. Great. Okay. Well, if we've finished that particular subject and we've got our direction here to move onwards and make it more available in the black and white as against the spoken word, we'll move on to the avoiding karma part, which is about getting entangled in conspiracy, which actually is another form of gossip. And Chris quite inadvertently led us nicely into it by talking about misinformation or denial of that which is around us, with a view to controlling mass public condition and thought processes. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about a particular condition that was back in 1982 with our own government, where we had the Falklands War, if you can remember that far back, and there was a particular comments by our Prime Minister at the time about certain things, and within a week those certain things were reversed. And although the comments were broadcast, they were on TV, they were on the papers, they were on radio, within a week, for some reason, that communication was totally reversed, the complete U-turn. And the media, it is supposed, and through conspiracy theory, were advised to broadcast in an even more prolific way the change that happened, not as a U-turn, but as the first thought process and the first series of actions. That which was previously broadcast was completely eradicated. All of the newspapers that were available were disappeared. All of the recordings of the television broadcasts and radio broadcasts disappeared. Everything disappeared. And it seemed that the change, the U-turn, was the only broadcast that ever happened. So this is all the things that happened to change our thought processes and make us think that we are incorrect or have been misled or are in some way, shape or form incorrect in our thought processes because another reality has been presented to us. But it's the conspiracy side of things that I'm talking about now, is where we all talk about it and work and conspire against those powers or those individuals that have rebroadcast or given us cause for concern that which is being broadcast to us is incorrect or is misleading in some way. And it's the constant chatter in the background from us all as to trying to understand what went on that is a higher form of gossip, if you want, so a higher level of gossip. Not that it's a better level of gossip, it's just a different form. It's removed from the gossip about individuals, friends and acquaintances and work colleagues, but it's transposed upon those that govern us in some way, shape or form. And the gossip itself, when we are perpetrating the gossip, not only affects us as it would do if it was normal gossip, so conspiracy theory and talking about conspiracy theory and that which is being conspired, not only affects us the same way as if it was as if we were gossiping about family, friends, relatives and work colleagues, but it also shifts the karmic link away from individuals but to groups of individuals. So we get involved with mass karma rather than individualized karma as a result of that. The mass karma is within the individuals who are providing the conspiracy, and those who are rebroadcasting the conspiracy, and also with those who are being conspired against. So there's a threefold mass of karma happening there that we can link ourselves into very, very quickly and easily if we're not careful. So when we have the opportunity to discuss conspiracy theories, we should walk away from that opportunity, whistling, so to speak, because it's another form of karma. It links us in a higher level and a mass level, and that mass level is what we have difficulty in disassociating ourselves from, and it can take many incarnations or incarnate lifetimes to disassociate ourselves with the links with those individuals we've conspired with and those individuals we've conspired against, in terms of the discussion around what we believe is conspiracy versus what we believe is the truth. Any comments and questions on that?
Yeah, turn the old TVs off, good watch nothing, and don't read the newspapers alone.
That is the ultimate response. Yes, I would agree with that.
I never read newspapers.
Nor me these days.
And very rarely watch the news.
Yeah. It's interesting that when we travel and we fly, or we go on trains, etc., or even if we go to various different shops, there's always newspapers presented to us. And the free newspaper that you get just as you're about to board an airplane, for instance, is very tempting to grab hold of and start to read and start to form one's own thoughts about what's being presented to us. But even those I personally don't pick up anymore. I look at them and realise that it's just another form of misinforming me from what I'm understanding in my own thought processes, because every different broadcasting media has a different flavour of that which is being broadcast, and so therefore it's best to take on board a bigger picture. And if one must buy newspapers, then one should really buy all the newspapers on the shelves and get the bigger picture from everything, stripping away the clothes that are the, should I say, the favourite methodology of broadcasting that each of those different newspapers and media companies work with. Yes, Marley?
I was just, I'm not sure you're going to strip anything away by reading them all, other than getting overloaded and depressed. Because I don't think they tell the truth. I mean, they're in the business. They're trying to make money, and money is still, we're in a dualistic society where people, for whatever reason, say they want to be happy, but they continually seek things that bring them not happiness, but the opposite of happiness. So I think it's interesting that what you said about this level of karma can take mass levels of, when you get buy into the mass level of karma, it can take many generations to shed, in my summary of that. And I don't know, I haven't owned a television in 7 years, so for me, I don't relate to the common average person because I don't understand what's on TV anymore. And I don't know that, I think that information that we seek has to be, you have to filter very heavily these days, and just don't buy in anything you read, and just because it's a trend. I don't know, I think you have to be maybe less emotionally attached while you are gathering information, and maybe perhaps that will allow people to not buy into that mass level of karma. I don't know. Yeah,
it's a good comment, Marnie, and I say you've done with that television for 7 years, and you are truly blessed. I have one. I recently bought a new one, quite a large one actually, but I very rarely actually use it, although I do watch various different personally selected pieces of National Geographic stuff or films and some videos. But
right, the filter they can allow you now is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I can choose my filter. But it's very important that we do recognise that they are a filter, and that it is in essence a means of changing our thought processes en masse. And so being able to step backwards and understand a bigger picture, even from a single source, is a great skill. And I think that it's something that we should definitely all work on. Initially, it's good to get a bigger picture by, if we must read the papers, then buying all the papers to see what the underlying truth is and stripping away those clothes. But in essence, in actuality, a lot of the information that's out there, we don't need to know about really. In our real incarnate work, a lot of that which is broadcast around us, we don't really have an effect on anyway. So if we don't have an effect on it, there's no point in us discussing it or being involved with it in any way, shape or form. And if we can think in those terms, where all I need to do is to work on myself, work on what I'm doing, and be in service to those who need to be in service too. And we can do that without interfacing or interface within a minimal condition with those media sources around us, which includes family and friends and work colleagues, then actually we can go through our incarnate existence in a more purer way without getting involved with those opportunities for individualised group and mass karmic links. And of course upsetting ourselves in not being able to understand what is the truth as against what is the falsehood out there. And one of the biggest things we need to get over is the fact that we're being lied to all the time. And as a result of that, that can be very, very disturbing in its own right, because we can very quickly get into a psychotic condition where we can't trust anything, anybody, or anywhere that we are within. But nevertheless, we still need to work with it. So it's an interesting thought process that the path to self-realization doesn't include the media. Does anybody have? Yeah, sorry. Oh, yes, Alan.
Oh, Gary, it just dawned on me that one of the reasons we are here is to understand duality and to free ourselves from the energies of both good and the positive and the negative. And I hadn't realized that I am so guilty of getting involved in conspiracy theories. But actually, what we're contributing to is the energy that goes back and forth in a dualistic sense from what is good, what is bad. We get involved in that, and so we lend our energy to it, and as you were pointing out, we get involved in it, even if it's on a mass level. And I'm thinking that actually, in order to, let's say, graduate from this or raise our frequency to come out of the dualistic hole into it, which is always the conflict of the negative and the positive, or an arena of dueling forces, is to have this kind of give yourself permission not to get involved. And as you're pointing out, without realizing it, we jump into a form of mass karma and involvement. There is a beautiful statement, it's contained in the Bible, where it says, "Ye are my witnesses, saith the Lord, do not I fill heaven and earth." And it seems as though only when we can take the objective point can we realize more deeply our oneness with Source, which is the I that this Bible verse is talking about, and the Source's in essence in us, and we can create an alignment that we can step out of the tremendous energetic, attractive, hypnotic pull that the duality force has. How does that sound to you?
It sounds excellent, actually. When you were speaking about that, Alan, I just had some information given to me that what we do is we actually enter into a different event space. We enter into event spaces of other individuals and those that are the conspiracy theory, the conspiracists, and those who broadcast it. Whether it's indeed is a conspiracy or not. It's just that we enter into this other event space. So the duality aspect of it, and the existing within a dualistic state, which is where we are right now, involves the possibility of possibilities. And if we have a possible possibility, that creates a different event space. And what I've just been picking up is that when we get involved in this opportunity for mass karma and mass event space that's created through being involved with conspiracy and the level of gossip that's associated with that, that particular event space gains what I can only describe as gravity, attractivity, if you want to call it that, that can pull others into it. So not only do we, for want of a better word, embark upon that which is detrimental to ourself and our own frequential evolution, but we also run the possibility of pulling others into it as well, through the sheer gravity of that which is being discussed and conspired and gossiped about. So we can enter into an event space which is purely supported by the conspiracy and the act of talking about the conspiracy or the possibility of a conspiracy. And there could be multiple event spaces surrounding that as well, because there's always the, those who believe the conspiracy is true, those that are trying to say it's not, those that are trying to show a different angle on that conspiracy. So it's quite interesting from that perspective that we can enter into different event spaces as well.
So then on that note, Guy, if you refuse to acknowledge and engage in that, do you diminish that power of that event space?
By quite simply not getting involved with it. We can choose. We have free will. We can remove ourselves from that event space. And by doing that, we remove ourselves from the karmic influence as well. It's a simple decision. We can choose not to be drawn into it. We can let that which is presented to us flush over us, as it were, and just let it bypass us. And that's the only way we can move into it. Even thinking about it gives it a possibility of being in existence, and also gives the possibility of the link to be in existence as well. So we really need to sort of be able to allow ourselves the opportunity to completely eradicate the possibility of that link, the possibility of thinking about that which is being presented to us in a profound way, by just totally eradicating it, by totally erasing it from our memory. Chris has suggested something. He says it's the egos that need to be right that we are drawn into, and to feel belonging. Yes. What Chris is suggesting there is that we gain something that we deep down want, which is a belonging, a part of something, which is consistent with some part of a thought process that we believe in. Now, this need to belong to something pulls us in as well, and makes us become part of this conspiracy theory and gossip group, as it were. And the underlying process behind that is that we all want to be one with that which we are truly. We all want to return to our true energetic selves, and we all want to be one with the source. We all want to be whole again, and part of the all again, and part of everything that is again. And this underlying feeling, this underlying desire, which is with us all throughout our life, is what makes us join certain groups and certain pastimes and hobbies and of like-minded individuals. And within this context of wanting to be part of a group of like-minded individuals, we also have this desire to be a part of a group of like-minded individuals who may have a conspiracy theory to discuss and gossip about. Thanks for that comment, Chris. That's led into something quite pertinent and interesting, supporting discussion and gossip about conspiracy, etc. Does anybody else have any comments on this?
Well, I could speak up. This is Joe. I have one comment. When you said you were going to talk about conspiracy theory, I misunderstood, because when I think conspiracy theory, I think about the various channelers that I have read a lot recently, and I'm kind of backing off, but messages from Matthew and the Steve Becko site, stuff brought by Michael Quincy, Salusar and all that. They all talk about these various conspiracies, like Steve Becko is really big on that President Bush was the cause for 9/11, and that there's all these leaders, including the Queen of England, that are all part of the Stark Cabal. And it's very easy to get sucked into that with these spiritual writers. So you obviously approach it on a larger basis, on a larger scale, but that's what I was thinking about, because I've been through that process, and I finally realized, I don't know, sometime last year, that all this conspiracy theory doesn't really help in any way.
No, it doesn't. And
it sucks you in.
And it not only sucks the individual in, it sucks spiritual leaders in as well. That's the gravity around the event space that supports those particular theories. It's so compelling, so utterly compelling that it pulls you in, or pulls one in without even realising what's there. Now it's interesting that you mentioned that about the 9/11, because I've just had an email from a reader of I think it was a History of God, who talked about what happened on 9/11 and the underlying reason for it. And the information I picked up and answered him with was that every now and then mankind, or incarnate mankind, needs something that pulls them all together, pulls us all together under a thought process of doing good in some way, or working together in some way for a greater cause. And there's nothing better than disaster that does that. And that disaster can be war, it can be earthquake, natural disaster, it can be the Twin Towers problem, it can be famine, it can be tsunami, it can be Holocaust, it can be drought, disease. All of these sorts of things occur not because they are there to cause us suffering, but they are there to make us realise that we can work together for the greater good rather than for the individualised good, which is selfishness. And that was the reason for 9/11, basically, was to make us all work together. It was a focal point which all of the incarnate individuals whose physical bodies demised in had bought into prior to their incarnation to be part of, so that they could be of service to those who were going to work together to effect good as a result of it. And that was not only a localised good within the World Trade Center and the city associated with it, but it was a worldwide level of good that came from it. And that's also with the Japanese disaster with their nuclear power plant. The amount of people that grouped together to send money, to send well wishes, to send energy, good vibrations, was amazing. So all of these things happen to make us work together and make us start to realise that we should be working together for the common good rather than the individualised good. Okay. That was a good comment, that was, Joe. I think it was a very useful piece of dialogue there. Chris has just said, does this raise the frequencies because of the love? Yes, it does. In every disaster where there's a multitudinous effect, we all work in synergy. So when we are working together for a common good, we all empathically associate ourselves with those who are suffering, and we want to work with them and for them to bring them out of their suffering, then it raises the frequencies because there's a huge triangulation effect that happens worldwide as a result of that. So not only does it bring higher frequencies to those who have suffered, but it also brings higher frequencies to those who are working together with a common thought process in a wider form of looser form of meditation and synergy. That means that the synergetic effect of all those with the common thought process and a common desire means that common desire results in a higher frequency, a significantly higher frequency than it would do if it was all individualised and separated out, even though it's the same thought process. Thanks, Chris. Right. If there's no other questions as a result of those two subjects, I'd like to be able to discuss the opportunity to have our meditation that we normally have, but focus on raising the energies of a particular location on the planet. So, if you remember at the start of the Satsanga, I requested that if we thought about it, we could have some suggestions as to where we might send energy to raise their frequencies. A particular area that we think that, or one of us thinks is in dire need of those energies. So, has anybody got any suggestions as to where we might send energy to? Birmingham.
North Korea.
North Korea, okay.
Syria.
Korea is exactly what came to my mind when you first brought it up earlier.
Okay. Well, we can do two spaces at the same time. We're good. We're that good.
In the Middle East, anywhere, the whole Middle East. Say, Syria needs it desperately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Syria needs
Everything. Right.
Okay. So let's focus on Matches. What did you say?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. So we can. Okay. Let's focus on the Middle East in general and North Korea because they've got a particular hard time at the moment. So just thinking about the Middle East in general, which includes Syria and Iran and Iraq and all those sort of areas, because I was thinking about Iran and Iraq at the same time because they desperately need some higher frequency thought process. So we just think about the Middle East, which is okay, and North Korea as being those areas that we need to send energy to raise their frequencies and to make them start to see beyond that which is material around them. Okay, so if we get ourselves comfortable and if we've got straight back chairs, we can have straight back chairs, feet on the ground and back straight, and the small of our backs in the right angle aspect of the chair. Alan, has Xavier arrived yet?
Again, what was that?
Has Xavier arrived yet?
Yes. he's
Okay,
here.
good, right, okay, so I can just make sure I can name him in the meditation. Good.
Thank you for asking. Yes, he came in about half hour ago.
Good, I thought I felt something, but I just wanted to make sure.
It was a 2.5 hour drive, but he got here.
Good, thank you, Xavier. Your dedication is a delight to experience.
Yes, thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. So, okay, so feet on the ground, in straight back chairs, or if you're going to assume a posture that would give us a similar position as a straight back chair. Back straight, head aligned with the back, and our palms uppermost and our upper thighs, and our eyes closed with the focus of our intention and our closed eye vision upon the origin of the third eye, the spiritual eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to now just imagine that I'm in a white room. I'm on my own in a white room, and there's a whole bunch of chairs there. Okay? Now each of those chairs overlay on each other, so it doesn't matter which chair you pick. You can grab one of those chairs and sit it by the side of me, either the left-hand side or the right-hand side, and sit down on that chair, and you can take either my left hand or my right hand with your left or right hand. And it doesn't matter where you go, because they'll all be overlaid on each other anyway. And it'll all work in synergy as well. So if you just imagine yourselves walking in this room, taking one of those chairs, okay, and putting that chair down by the side of me, and just holding with your left hand or your right hand, my right hand or my left hand, just taking one of my hands so that you're linked in with me. So if each of you walk into the room, I can see that Xavier's already there, Marnie, Joe, Alan, Meryl, Chris, Natchas and John, all there in the room. And you've all got one of my hands, good. Now we're all working in synergy now with the thought process of raising the frequencies of the area called the Middle East and the area called North Korea simultaneously. We shouldn't think of them as separate, we should think of them as the same. They are areas in need of higher frequencies to bring them out of their darkness. So link North Korea and the Middle East together. Imagine that they're two balls. One's a smaller ball, one's a larger ball. Imagine them moving together and becoming one. So the energy that's associated with North Korea and the Middle East is now one. So whatever we do, we only need to focus on one particular area, one large ball of Middle East, North Korea, which is one. If it helps, think of yourself being in orbit, a greater orbit around the Earth, where these two areas, if you went the farther and farther away you go, start to merge into one naturally, based upon distance. Now think about where we are being inside a much larger sphere. This much larger sphere is actually the inside of that area of energy, of self-aware sentient energy, we call the source entity, our source entity, that which created our multiverse. We don't need to think about the structure of the multiverse, we just need to think about where we are, what we're giving energy to, and the fact that we're within the source entity. Now think about the inner edge of the source entity being like the surface inside a blown up balloon. Okay? The surface of a balloon we never see or touch because it's inside the balloon. That which has got contact with air when it's blown up. Imagine this sphere is like the inside of a blown up balloon. And that from this blown up balloon, an umbilical cord starts to grow. A little bit like a typhoon or a water spout. And it comes down from this inner edge, inner surface of the source, and goes down past us, using our collective thought process to manifest it. It comes past us, going down towards the earth, and then engulfs that other ball that we've created, which is a combination of Middle East and North Korea. This ball that engulfs that ball, it is connected by this energetic link that looks a little bit like a typhoon or a water spout, and is therefore connected to the inner edge of the outer periphery of the source, is energized with source frequency, pure energy, pure frequency. There is no low frequency, it is pure high frequency. Just imagine that that energy is not only going around the outside of the ball that was created that is now Middle East and North Korea, but it's permeating throughout that ball that is Middle East and North Korea. The higher frequency energy of the source is within and without that which is the Middle East and North Korea. Raising its base frequencies from the depths that they were up to a condition which is at least equal to the highest frequency on the earth right now. Just imagine this ball suddenly changing colour, this Middle East North Korea ball, being originally a black ball, starting to change its colour, going from black to a dark grey, to a middle grey, to a light grey, a colour change indicating frequential change from darkness to lightness, to a very light grey, to to an almost imperceptible grey, to a dirty white, to a creamy white, to a white, to a bright white, to a fluorescent white, to an iridescent white, to a radiance, to an increasing radiance, glowing and pulsating in pure high frequency energy. That which was dark energy, or should we say low frequency energy, that was Middle East, North Korea, is now high frequency energy. As we give it more energy and tap that source energy, allowing the source entity energy to pulsate and permeate within and without that which is Middle East, North Korea, we see that the base frequency of those areas are pulled up to that which is source entity energy in its truest and purest form. As the energy and frequency grows within that ball that is Middle East, North Korea, the pulsation and the iridation of that energy and the glow becomes brighter and brighter and brighter, more and more iridescent, more finer. It becomes so fine that eventually we can't see that glowing, that iridescence, that fluorescence, that pulsation. It is just pure high frequency, well beyond that which is perceivable. It is now in the purest state of frequency. All that was low frequency about Middle East, North Korea has been shed and is being shed, like droplets of rain falling from a cloud, leaving just free space and free air in the process, so that droplets of lower frequency existence, environment and action are also dropping away, leaving this pure high frequency, non-opaque ball that is Middle East, North Korea. Totally see-through because of the high frequencies. Although we can perceive it as being there, it is no longer perceivable because the opacity that's gone from dark, from black, through the different grey colours, through the different white colours, through the different fluorescence and iridescence levels, has now become so pure that there is no low frequency attachment to it, and therefore there's no colour or no opacity that can be attached to it. It is therefore totally and utterly clear, totally and utterly invisible. Imagine as a result all those individuals who perpetrate low frequency pastimes, existence, communication mediums and doings against others, suddenly wake up, realise what they're doing and stop and walk away with tears of joy in their eyes. Those with weapons drop the weapons and break them up. Those who are committing atrocities stop the atrocities and heal those that they've committed the atrocities against. Tears of joy is realisation that they're all one. They're all brothers and sisters. They are all part of the same source. Becomes a true realisation, a knowledge base rather than a belief system. And now we can let this invisible ball hang in space and remove and contract that energetic link, that typhoon type link, away from that invisible ball that is Middle East, North Korea, reborn, and contract it back into that inside edge of the outer edge of the source. And now we can separate out those two land masses, positioning them back where they were. The Middle East and all the Middle Eastern countries all being raised in frequency, back where they should be geographically. And the area of North Korea and its location being back together above South Korea. And then we can move away from this visualization, freshen the knowledge that if we were to look at the Earth, there'd be a gap in these two areas, because these two areas are so high frequency that they no longer look and see and feel like they would do on a physical map. They are no longer there because they are a higher frequency. Although they are there in location, their frequency is such that it lifts them above and beyond that which is the base frequency of everything else on the planet. Let us now move back into the room. And Joe and Jane and Chris and Alan and Xavier and Merrill and John and Marnie and Matthias just disengage the hand holding, stand up, put the chair back where you found it, and move out of the door that lets you into the room. And very slowly come back into whichever room you are, in whichever part of the world you are. Freshen the knowledge, you've raised the frequencies of two areas of frequential darkness on this globe that desperately needed it. The Source thanks you for this work and is delighted that you participated. And I thank you as well. So come back into the room that you're in, and that's high frequency. Feel the frequencies all over me. Very well done, all of you. How do you all feel? Chris, how do you feel?
There's a big smile on my face. I'm feeling happy.
Excellent. Alan, how are you?
Thank you, Guy. It was so real and such a gift that we could participate together in.
Good. Merrill, how do you feel?
I'm good, and I have to say, job well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Xavier, how do you feel?
I was enthralled with the experience and feel honored to participate. Very honored.
Okay, thank you. John, how are you?
I'm vibrating out of my chair.
Thank you. That's a good. Actually, that's very, very good. It means that you've really absorbed those energies as well. Fantastic. Marnie, how are you? Thank you.
Great. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah. Marnie sent a message saying, "Wow, that was amazing." And actually, I felt the level of work we'd done was absolutely. I'm going to use the British word here, awesome. We don't use awesome very often in Britain, but it was a very, very wonderful piece of work we've all done. Matthias, how do you feel?
Yes, it's very great. I feel good. I felt an enormous flow of energy go through, and it's very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
It was quite good. I realized I had stopped sending light to various continents and countries back in the middle of last year when I thought everything was going to be resolved by December 21st, and I feel as though I will start that exercise up again, sending light to various countries and continents. So yes, this was good.
Thank you. Jane?
Good.
Good. Spaced out. Jane spaced. Good. Okay, well that ends this particular Satsanga, and again thanks to Joe Mubu for letting me use his computers and his monitors, and it's been a delight to send it from Hawaii, which has got a wonderful skyline still, and it's nice and warm. And I thank you all very much for participating, and I'm going to put this onto the website and send an email to you with these files. I'm going to send 2 files so that any of you can access them, because I'm aware sometimes that sometimes some of the software in our PCs doesn't open the file, so I'm going to try and send an AMR file, MOV file, and probably an MP3 file as well. Yeah, so there might be 3 files there actually for your own personal use, and please feel free to broadcast it as well if you have an opportunity. So thank you very much to you all, and I look forward to speaking to you again in a month's time.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?